In a world where nuclear war has begun, vampires fought back in super real 3D.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Ash Von Chamier, Rough Cut Productions, Tallahassee, Florida. This is to get people up and running if you're just getting into cameras. You may be looking to buy a camera and you are trying to figure out, should I buy a camcorder or should I buy a DSLR? And there's also mirrorless cameras as well. For today's video purposes, I'm just gonna rack mirrorless cameras and DSLRs in the same category because they are much more similar than the camcorders. As far as camcorders go, you got your cheaper ones and you got your prosumer level. If you're after image quality, it's DSLRs or mirrorless, period. The prosumer level camcorders, they can still look good, but bottom line is if you're after like just the best images that you can produce, I highly recommend just going with the DSLR mirrorless. Now you can get into cinema cameras, that's a different category, hits a different price league, so we're not gonna go into that today. Let's say that you're working with a budget of anywhere from 500 bucks up to, heck, 3,000 bucks. I'm still gonna go DSLR or mirrorless all day long because of image quality. Why is the image better? It's because of a few different factors, and here we go. Sensor size. Sensor sizes are much bigger in these DSLRs and mirrorless cameras. Even if you're using a crop sensor, it's substantially bigger than using a camcorder's sensor size. Those range in a multitude of sizes. Oftentimes 2/3 is like a bigger sensor size for a camcorder. And if you have a cheaper camera, it's just gonna go smaller and smaller and smaller. In these DSLR and mirrorless cameras, they're equivalent, like even the crop sensor, that's close to a super 35mm sensor. That's the same kind of sensor size that you would find in a cinema camera. When you go and watch movies in the theater, the majority of the films that you've seen have been filmed with that sensor size. And a crop sensor DSLR or mirrorless camera is already in that ballpark. Usually crop sensor DSLRs and mirrorless are a bit cheaper. Full frame cameras are a bit more, and full frame cameras are in the DSLR or mirrorless camp. When you have a bigger sensor size, it is what allows you to have shallow depth of field, for instance, where one thing is in focus and the background is more blurred out. Kind of like what I've got going on here. I do have a shallow depth of field happening. It's not extreme. I could make it more extreme, but focus is harder to pull, and when you're doing self-interviews like this, it's wiser to give yourself a little bit of leeway on the focus plane. But bottom line is, quickest summary about sensor sizes is bigger is better when it comes to image quality for the most part, okay? And when you come into camcorder land, all the sensors are smaller. I'm about image quality, and that's why these DSLRs and mirrorless are what I'm gonna vote for every time in comparison to the camcorders, at least at the beginning of 2019, okay? I don't know if some revolutionary kind of new sensor camera is gonna come out, but as of right now, it's mirrorless and DSLRs for image quality. Sensor sizes, that's number one. Number two reason, interchangeable lens systems. In other words, you can put different lenses on a DSLR or mirrorless. When you buy a camcorder, you are stuck to the lens that's on there. Now, the only advantage to that lens that's on a camcorder is that, yes, it is easier to shoot with a camcorder. Just have one lens on there. You don't have to think about lenses. You have a very big zoom range, but take note that the further that you zoom, the darker the image is going to get because it has a variable aperture on a camcorder lens. None of them are fixed apertures, whereas you get less of a zoom range on an expensive camera lens that you'd put on a DSLR or mirrorless, but you can hold that aperture solid at the same f-stop. So on a zoom lens like a 70 to 200, you can have it at an aperture of 2.8, and you can't do that. No camcorders are offering a 2.8 aperture all the way through the zoom range that they offer, but they do offer a wider zoom range. Like the best zoom range experience I ever had was the Panasonic AG AC130. It was a prosumer level camcorder, and its zoom range went from 24mm all the way up to the equivalent of a 600mm lens. That was insane. I did love having that, but as you zoomed further and further and further, it did get darker and darker and darker. So you're gonna have to, once you get to that zoom range, you gotta make adjustments, and because it's a smaller sensor, it's not gonna be as good with low light anyway. And this is another advantage of DSLRs and mirrorless, especially in the Sony camp. When it comes to low light, with a bigger sensor, you can capture more light. You're gonna do way, way better in low light situations with DSLR or mirrorless. We literally, on one shoot, Sacred Ground, we were in the woods, Eli's Sacred Ground. We were out in the woods, and we were at a point where we had unplugged all the lights that we had been running with the generator, and we were looking through the Sony a7S to find our way through the woods in the pitch black dark, and it was the only way we could see where the hell we were going, because we ended up, our flashlight died. Now you're just gazing, and I need you to do a couple of like jaw things, like yeah, give it to me. You're just looking, you're not walking. Yeah. Now hunch over towards me a little bit. Yeah, do it again. Oh my God, dude. Sorry. So the Sony a7S is amazing. They're all the way. I'm holding out for Sony a7S III. I skipped the 2, probably get the 3. Anyway, so again, another winner. Wins in low light, gives you the opportunity to build up an arsenal of lenses over time. Yes, that's more money, but you're building an actual inventory of different looks that are pristine. I mean, every lens is going to offer different character, different attributes, and each lens is optimized at that exact zoom range or exact focal length if it's a prime lens. And we can get into prime lenses versus zoom lenses and all that later. Bottom line is you get an option of lenses when you get into the DSLR mirrorless world. Now keep something in mind here, you know, just to give you an idea of the picture quality difference when you get to buy a dedicated lens that's trying to be as good as it can on its own as a lens that you'd buy independently. If you're buying like a Canon 70-200, that's going to be over $2,000 if you bought it new, which is going to be as much as your camera. Now, you can buy cheaper lenses, you can buy other brands, but my point with that is, how do you expect a camcorder to compete when it's trying to cover the entire camera body, it's trying to cover every option about a camera in this one thing, in this one lens, and the thing costs $2,000 to start, right? Versus just buying a lens for $2,000. That lens, there's a reason that lens costs a significant amount of money. It's because it's going to look superior to what's on that camcorder lens at those zoom ranges, and it's going to be able to hold a solid aperture all the way through, and it's going to be put on a more powerful camera. When you're paying money for a DSLR or mirrorless camera, you're getting a bigger sensor that's going to have better low light performance. It's going to be able to produce shallow depth of field, which is something that's very hard to achieve much of on even a prosumer level camcorder, let alone a cheap camcorder. The summary of the camcorder is, if you're after something that's easier to use and you want sound to be easier, like recording quality sound to be easier, then get a prosumer level camcorder that offers XLR ports. You know, that fixed lens is going to be easier to navigate. There is a reason to get a camcorder, but if you're following my channel, then you're probably here to try and make the best images that you can. And if that's the case, it's DSLR mirrorless all day long, and then eventually try and get into the cinema camera land. You can go so far with just a DSLR mirrorless. You don't even necessarily have to get into a full cinema rig, but there are advantages to that we'll get in at another point. That's a different price point. One more thing that DSLR and mirrorless offer that, again, makes them so much better when it comes to image quality over the camcorder is that with the DSLR mirrorless, you know, we're talking video here, but you can take pictures. You can take absolutely stunning, amazing photographs, and if you practice doing some photography, it's going to make your videography better because you're going to have to focus on the concept of composition. I personally want to spend more time taking some photos. In fact, that's one of my things that I'm going to be doing more of this year specifically, because I know every time I do it, I come out of it feeling like I'm a better videographer because I practice taking pictures. And that's not really an option on a camcorder. You don't get to explore that. And the quality of photographs on these cameras, DSLRs and mirrorless, to be honest, in most cases, most of them are designed to take pictures. Like the video part is this bonus round that they are fitting in, and it just looks that good because the sensors are so good. So there's just really no comparison when it comes to image quality on the camcorders as far as I'm concerned. And even if you get a camcorder that offers 10-bit color and the DSLR only offers 8-bit, I'm sorry, but I still see better color science happening on the DSLR and mirrorless. When it just sings more when it's paired with a larger sensor and quality lenses that offer these beautiful contrast and color values and sharpness. It's the winner, guys. So that's my recommendation. We can discuss brands and all that later. If you want to know more about why I would go with what brand over what brand and what I think the advantages are over certain things, we've got a floater. It's a floating piece of fuzz. If you want to know more about like which specific cameras I would recommend, let me know. Like, drop a comment below, and I need to know which direction, because I've got like literally hundreds of things to make these videos about. There's tons of things that I want to go over, so guide me a little bit in letting me know what it is that you want to know more about. If you like this kind of information, by all means, I would love for you to subscribe. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Give me a like, that would be awesome. Hit the notification bell and you'll know every week when a new episode's out. It's gonna be every Thursday, and as I can, I will plug out another video too. So you'll have minimum 1 video a week, and sometimes 2. Congratulations on getting involved in this. Do it. Buy a camera. Get into it. Get into editing though. Editing's pretty big. Learn how to edit. That's where I think most of the magic really happens. But I love cameras too. So have fun and take care, and I'll see you on the other side. Boom.
Movie voice.
Yeah, look at your, raise your arm, Charlie. Well, cut, because Charlie, you were still being torn around, but he wasn't holding you anymore.
I understand.